about you. Now we'll break it all down for you. We multiply compute by 40 million.
Agents used to wait and see, now act autonomously. But if they ever try to stray, safeguards block and say no way.
NemoClaw's there to guard the course.
And yes, my friends, it's open source.
Hello everyone, I'm Aman and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want to show you something really interesting from NVIDIA called NemoClaw and how it works with OpenClaw. So before we move to NemoClaw, let's first try to understand what OpenClaw is. So OpenClaw is basically an AI assistant that actually performs things or take actions for you. It can be accessing your apps, using tools, running code, calling APIs, or automating the entire workflow. Now that sounds powerful, right? But the problem is it can access everything. So how do we actually control that? Like it can sometimes, call the wrong API. It sometimes modifies something it shouldn't have, or it accesses the sensitive data. So to handle exact this problem, NemoClaw comes in. So it sits around your OpenClaw, and let me tell you first that it's not a replacement. It basically wraps the OpenClaw. So it takes your OpenClaw agent and runs inside a sandboxed environment. So instead of our agent having full freedom, we can define those boundaries around our agent, like what the agent is allowed to access, what actions it can perform, and how it behaves. It also provides visibility into what the agent is currently doing and where it's failing and what it's trying to access. And this becomes very critical when we move towards agent which runs in enterprises, because we need governance and safety plus auditability over there. So now let's actually set this up. So a quick overview of what we are going to cover today. First, we will set up an AWS EC2 instance. So EC2 is basically a remote machine in the cloud server where we will run everything. If you want a local machine setup to be covered, then drop a comment saying want local setup guide and I'll make a separate video for that. Second, we will install OpenClaw inside the server. And then we will install NemoClaw and create the sandbox environment around our OpenClaw agent. And finally, we will connect everything and run the agent inside that sandbox environment so you can see how it actually works. Alright, we are here inside the AWS console and we are launching a new EC2 instance. So I'll just go ahead and click this launch instance from here. First, we'll need to give our instance a name. I'll just call the OpenClaw server. Next, we need to select the operating system. Choose Ubuntu over here. This is a clean Linux environment and works well with Docker and such tools. And then we need to select the instance type. So I'm going ahead with this t2.x large over here, which gives 16 GB of RAM. So this is important as we are gonna run Docker, sandboxing and agent workloads. So don't just go ahead with the small instance. Now key pair login over here. This is what you're gonna use to connect to the server. So I have already created one called OpenClaw. If you don't have one, just click create new pair and download it and keep it safe to connect. Now next, network settings. This is where most people make mistakes, like under security group, make sure that you have this SSH port allowed so you can connect to server. And since we'll be running OpenClaw, it exposes a local UI on port 18789. So we will need to add that. So I'll just edit that and from here add new security group info. I will just go ahead and select custom TCP and will in the port range we will add that particular port 18789. And for source, like we have two options. If you just want a quick demo, you can set it to like anywhere, but that is not recommended for production. A better approach is like selecting and going via my IP. So that way, like only our machine can access OpenClaw interface. So I'll just select my IP over here, and we are only allowing access to OpenClaw UI, but only for our own system, not for the public internet. Now network is set. Let's move to storage. By default, like it's very low, usually 8 GB. That will not work, so I'm just setting this up to 50 GB. Again, the same reason, Docker image, NemoClaw, sandbox and all the build artifact will take a lot of space. All right, now like we have configured all the things. Let's launch our instance and give it a minute or two until the instance is up and running. We can just go to the instance and we can check the status over here. So currently it's showing that it's initializing our server. So let's just wait and see.
A few moments later.
So as our server has passed all the status checks and it's running, so now we need to connect to this machine. So select your instance and copy the public IPv4 address from here. And now I'll switch to PowerShell. So if you are on Mac or Linux, you can use terminal. Now connect using SSH over here. You will need to provide the PEM path of your file. So I'll just copy paste this command and we'll hit replace your public IP over here with the actual IP. And if this is your first time, you'll see a warning. Just type in yes and that's it. Now it will connect to our cloud server, and now we are inside our EC2 machine. So what we are doing here is like we are connecting to a remote Linux machine, and like here we will install everything like and run our OpenClaw and NemoClaw. Now that we are inside the machine, let's set up the environment. So first we will update the system and install all the basic needs. So I'll just go ahead and execute this particular command. So this just makes sure that everything is up to date for our further installation and further operations. So let's just wait to get this finished.
1 minute 37 seconds later.
Now next we will install some essential tools. So I'll just use this command. So basically this will install all the standard dependencies we will need for further installations. So again, let's just wait for a few seconds to get this completed.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Now next we will install Docker over here. So let me execute this command. So Docker is important here because NemoClaw runs everything in isolated containers. So we will need Docker for that to run. And once it's installed, let's start Docker and enable it. So I'll just use these commands to start and enable. Now we need to give our user permission to run Docker without sudo. So for that I will just use this command for permission, and that's done. Finally, let's verify if Docker is installed or not. So I'll just use Docker version, and if you see the version, then we are good to move towards next steps. Now let's install the runtime dependencies. So first we will install Node.js. So OpenClaw needs a newer version of Node.js, that is 22. So I'll just use this command and install Node.js on this server. And once it's installed, let's just wait for a few seconds.
12 seconds later.
Now let's verify that if it's installed or not by checking the version. You should see Node version 22 is installed. Next we will install Python. So I'll just go ahead and use this command to install Python on this. Now Python is installed. Let's just check the version of the Python. So I'll just use this command. Okay, Python -- version, and you can see the latest version of Python is installed. Let's verify the pip as well. So now Python and pip both are installed. Now let's go ahead and install OpenClaw. So I'll just use this command and we'll fetch the latest version of the OpenClaw. So this installs OpenClaw without running the onboarding process. It will take some time to install and configure everything on its own. So let's just wait and see. So now like it warns us that some path is missing. So now before we could access OpenClaw, we will need to add some npm global path so that like command can work across everywhere. So I'll just execute this particular command to add the path. And now let's verify that if OpenClaw is installed or not. So I'll just go ahead and check the OpenClaw version. And if you see the version, we are good to go ahead with NemoClaw installation. Now let's install NemoClaw. So we'll just paste this command. This will start an interactive setup. So what's happening here is like NemoClaw is setting up the entire environment for us. It checks if Docker is running or not. It installs missing tools like OpenShell and make sure like all the required ports are available for us. And then it starts the it will create the gateway for us. So let's just wait and see the process. Now next, currently over here, like it's starting OpenCell gateway. So basically OpenCell is the system that actually creates and manages the entire sandbox. So NemoClaw defines the rules and policies, and OpenCell is the backend that runs the sandbox and enforces them. So now it's asking us for the sandbox name. So I'll just use OpenClaw sandbox over here. And after that, NemoClaw will start setting things up in the background. This part can take a few minutes, so don't worry if it looks slow. So what it's basically doing is like it's creating the gateway, building the sandbox image, and pushing that image and preparing the isolated environment for us where we will run our OpenClaw agent. So basically, if I had to summarize, like this part is basically creating the controlled runtime around our agent. And then it will ask for an NVIDIA API key. You can generate this from NVIDIA's site. I already have one, so I'll just gonna use that. So I'll just paste it over here, and we'll move ahead. Now it's asking for us to choose a model. These are different large language models that your agent can use. I'll just go ahead with the default option over here, that is Nemotron model. And now it's asking about policy persist. So basically these are predefined rules for what your agent is allowed to access. For example, like PyP if it needs to install any Python packages, npm if it needs to install JavaScript packages, Slack, Jira, or APIs depending on our use case. It also suggests some default like PyP or npm. So I'll just go ahead and accept this, and now it will it will configure everything, and it will complete the entire setup in just few seconds. So let's just wait. Alright, the setup is now completed. So you can see that sandbox is created, the model is configured, and everything is ready for us. So now before we connect, there is one small setup that we need to do. So in some cases the OpenClaw like OpenCell CLI is not available in the path, so we need to install it manually. So you use this command to install it, and now we will need to add the path as well to environment variable. And after adding, let's check the OpenCell version, and if you see the version, like we are good to go. Now we will connect to the sandbox environment. So let's just go ahead and use this command to connect to that particular sandbox that we have created, and then we will open the OpenClaw terminal UI over here using this command. You can see that now our OpenClaw is running over here. So everything is configured and our OpenClaw is up and running. So let me just type in the prompt over here. Hello, please greet me. And it will take some time, as in we are first time inferencing, but it got us this result. So OpenClaw is running, our agent is running, and that is running inside the sandbox environment that is safeguarded by NemoClaw. Alright, so we have come a long way. Let's quickly recap what we have done so far. So we have set up an EC2 instance, installed all the required dependencies, installed OpenClaw, and then layered NemoClaw on top of it. So we created a sandbox and connected OpenClaw to run inside that particular environment. So now instead of running an agent directly on a machine, we are running it inside a controlled, isolated setup. And we now have an agent that can take actions, but within defined boundaries and policies. And in the next video, we'll go deeper into this. So we will gonna cover like how to access OpenClaw dashboard like outside that isolated environment, how to configure policies properly, and how to connect this with real applications securely. That's it for this one. If you found this useful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.